Welcome to today's program, Fuel for Innovation, Connected Innovation Intelligence. We're just going to get started in a couple minutes. We'll let some folks filter in as they arrive to the event. All right, well, we'll get started. Welcome to our TAO Professional Development Program, Fuel for Innovation, Connected Innovation Intelligence with PatSnap. I'm Riley O'Brien, Vice President, Events and Experiences at TAO. Just wanted to offer a couple of rules of engagement before we get started. All participants have asked to be muted. If you prefer, you can ask and respond to questions in the chat box publicly or privately by directing your message to me. I'm under the special events name. There's actually two of us right now, but I will be the one under the special events name throughout this event. And I'll monitor the chat box through and respond to questions throughout the discussion. And you're welcome to use the participant icon on your screen as well with a variety of ways to engage. We ask that you follow us on social media during this call and throughout the day. We'd love to share what's happening at TAO and get participant takeaways from all of our events. And speaking of events, we have a couple of events coming up that might be of interest to participants in today's webinar. On Thursday, August 5th, the Oregon Black and Latinx tech community will be meeting virtually at 4 p.m. This closed process group will be facilitated by a professional therapist, Andre Rideau, to provide opportunity to bring Black and Latinx folks working in tech across Oregon together to share experiences, voice concerns, share resources, and support one another. I'm going to put this opportunity in our chat box in just a second. So if folks want to link out to that event and register, they're welcome to. On Wednesday, August 11th at 4 p.m., the Data and Analytics Strategy Leadership Community will be hosting a collaborative workshop. Participants will learn best practices and processes for framing conversations around business value of analytics and making convincing arguments for growing analytic resources. And so we hope that you can join us for that one as well. And finally, our really popular series, I Am Tech Oregon, will be on Thursday, August 12th at 11 a.m. featuring Tiffany Tay, a designer with Supply. So hopefully you can join us for that. All of our sessions are recorded, and so you're welcome to take a look at our YouTube for any of these sessions and past sessions. I want to thank PatSnap for being our partner for this event. Lisa Griffith has just been a wonderful partner of ours for many years, and so we're excited to share what they have to offer. And finally, it's my pleasure to introduce PatSnap's Innovation Consultant Lead, Lisa Griffith. Lisa, take it away. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Can everybody hear me? Good. Well, thank you, Riley. I really appreciate the opportunity to partner with you. I think this is like our fourth year now and partnering in an event with Technology Associates of Oregon. I am a native Oregonian, so I take a lot of pride in representing our state. I do cover the West Coast for PatSnap and work with many different industries around innovation, intellectual property, and product development. And PatSnap, if you haven't heard about us, we have been around since about 2007. We are now a Series E organization. Our Series E funding came out a few months ago. We had a $300 million round. So I think technically we're a unicorn now. But very excited about the direction of the company. We're in a hyper growth mode. And with that, I do want to introduce Carl Roast. Carl is our head of product enablement at PatSnap. He has over 15 years of experience working within enterprise software and intellectual property solutions. He is an expert within PatSnap and guiding these conversations with different organizations who are really focusing on understanding innovation, analytics, the patent landscape, all things around innovation. So I'm just delighted that Carl is joining us to lead this discussion. And with that, I will hand it over to Carl to start things off. We do want to make this interactive, so if you have questions, please feel free to put them in chat. or save them to the end, and we'll save some time to answer those as well. But thank you again for joining us. We're excited that you're here. And Carl, I'm passing it to you.
Thank you very much, Lisa, and hi everyone. Yeah, I think we're actually blessed with sort of a medium-sized group here. So actually, I would be very comfortable if anyone wants to simply unmute during the presentation and just begin asking questions. I'm sure you all do different things. I had a little sneak peek here on LinkedIn while people were coming into the meeting. I see some people in sort of traditional industry, but also software space, for example. So yeah, very happy to take any questions. And in terms of who I am, I work kind of mainly internally nowadays at PatSnap. So I'm a product enablement manager. So what that allows me to do is spend all day long basically training and helping new starters at PatSnap and existing reps to understand the IP space, like the inventive space, like the challenges that IP and R&D and organizations have when it comes to innovation, and then helping them as well kind of have a conversation around our product set, our offering, and how that kind of aligns to that. So that's what I do. I'm originally from Sweden, as you can, if you consider wondering what accent I have, but I have been working in London, in the UK for PatSnap for a very long time, and also have some experience from the software market in sort of North Europe as well as East Asia. So yeah. So PatSnap kind of came to being in a very different way than other people in our space. And when I say our space, I say I mean the kind of, well, what started out as the patent search and analytics space. Our CEO, Jeff, was a chemical engineer over in the University of Singapore, but also in the US. And he had a bunch of student innovations. So he was basically a startup in the making. So he was trying to understand the entire landscape around these innovations. So is this something I should invest in? Should I make this my big project or not? What's out there is what I'm doing novel, unique? Is it going to fit a space in the market? What does the market look like? Should I invest in this? But as well as understand kind of the patent space. So everything that relates to that company. So what he did is that he went out to traditional databases. I'm sure you heard of them, LexisNexis. He spoke to lawyers. He ordered market reports, etc., etc. But he found that they were not really built in a way that helped him as an inventor, as someone who wanted to start something. The patents and the lawyers were very inaccessible, expensive. They didn't understand his technology area. Understanding the market and the future and opportunity and risk for a certain product or a company is also tremendously challenging. So what he decided was that instead of trying to commercialize these student innovations, he wanted to solve this problem. So how do you, as an innovator or someone who supports innovators, do this effectively and in a way that kind of speaks the language of the subject matter expert? So today, I was hoping to go through that problem a little bit. We can look at what challenges does someone who wants to invent and protect your innovation and kind of launch products or projects or companies face, and how will they overcome them, or how can they overcome them? So with that said, does anyone have any questions before we set out, or anything particularly that anyone would like to see, something specific? Again, please feel free to interrupt me throughout the presentation. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen, and we can begin to have a look at a few things. Not too many slides, I promise. Okay. You should all be able to see my screen, I believe.
Yep, we can see it, Carl.
Excellent. All right. So, from a very basic level, when you invent or you have, you want to launch something, you ask yourself a number of questions, like, can it be protected? Do people want it? Are we infringing? Can it be made? And can we make money? The risk when it comes to launching any venture like this for a large company, a single inventor or a startup, is that a lot of this is very difficult to answer, and it takes time, resources. So most people don't have these questions answered at an early stage in the process. It's things that they're figuring out as they are kind of going along. This inserts a lot of risk in many ways. If only one of these fail, all that effort, all that budget might be wasted, and all that time as well. So people have tried a lot of different ways to answer these questions, and often leaning to consultants and experts to answer these type of questions. But again, if you are a subject matter expert or you're working with subject matter experts, it's very difficult for those outside experts to truly understand what you're doing and what you need, what it is that you're launching, and all the aspects of that. So a lot kind of falls behind it, between the chairs in the back and forth. So when people try to answer these questions, they kind of begin to look at a lot of different data points. So these are some of the data points. I'm sure there are many more, but that are considered throughout kind of launching an invention or a product or a new technology, for example. Traditionally, you started out by looking at the IP landscape, but also, of course, institutional knowledge in your inventive community. If you're a startup, the technology experts in your business. If you're a larger organization, all the different scientists that's been working and producing products for you. But we also look at things like markets, like sales data, market reports. What are your competitors doing? Which products are they launching in trade shows? What patents are they filing now that might result in product launches in a couple of years' time? What's trending and buzzing in the news? For some, depending on what you're developing, clinical trials could be relevant, but also things like venture capital investment. So if you're moving into a certain space, depending on the velocity of investments in that space, that's certainly an indicator of viability. What frontiers are the universities pushing? So what's out there in terms of research funding, what's being sort of investigated, what's in scientific publications? What type of businesses are being acquired by the large players in the market? When it comes to the IP side of things, there's just so many things to consider as well. And it's very, very rare that people have a good view of the IP landscape at an early stage. And again, if you wait too long to validate this, to understand this, to gauge the risk and opportunities, you're exposing your business to a lot of risk. So, if I'm filing patents, what will they be worth? How will it impact the valuation of my business? Is the ideas that we're bringing forward novel? Can I protect them through patent? Do I have patentability? If someone makes a claim against me and my products, saying that they have a patent that I'm infringing, you might want to check the validity of that claim. What are the key experts in a certain field kind of cooking up right now? And the most important inventors at the large players in your market, what are they doing? Is there any way we can understand what they're going to come up with next? Are large players in the market acquiring patents or part of portfolios to support a new technology or product launch, for example? And then further down the line, we have commercialization and licensing opportunities. Maybe you would like to know at an early stage that, well, maybe we can't get this manufacturing process to work or become profitable for us, but maybe we should go ahead still, because there are a lot of commercialization and licensing opportunities and alternative ways that we can extract revenue from this invention beyond just kind of selling a product attached to it. So PatSnap has sort of come into play here to give someone a toolbox to answer most of these questions themselves, and make it so easy that you can do that at an early stage of your inventive process. So before you have started to put a lot of money into something, you will already have a good understanding if you're going to get return on investment. So with all of this, you can imagine it's a lot of data, it's a lot to look at, and many organizations go to hundreds of different places for this information, and it becomes very complex. For example, large companies might even have a department responsible for knowledge sweeps, that their sole job is to kind of dig through all of this and curate this information and present them to certain projects. We have collected, we're trying to simplify that and kind of empower the inventor to get a good understanding of all of this themselves, so they can, because we believe that when you empower a subject matter expert to be able to explore this type of data, then they usually get better findings because of their knowledge of a specific area. So I'll show you some of the ways, some of the challenges with sort of looking through all of this data. And then also we're going to look at some of the challenges with interpreting this data as well. So when looking at all of this stuff, then this becomes very challenging. How do I find what I need to find within this huge data set, disparate data set? How can I even have time to read all the relevant literature? How do I store this and save it? How do I keep it updated? How do I monitor this information or the players that I've identified? How can I understand, separate the signal from the noise and understand what all of this data is about? And if I'm working with other people, how can I make sure I share this information? And how can we collaborate around that? Okay. Right. So let's begin maybe by looking at getting a rough idea of the size of this challenge. So I'm going to go to our platform. Okay, so currently here, what I'm doing is that I'm analyzing pretty much all the patents in the world. We have 159 million patents in our database, and we cover 120 databases and 116 patent jurisdictions. So what we're looking at here is the publication trends of current assignee regions. So just to be clear here, what you see here in, I guess, teal in the bottom is the US filing rate of publication rate. What we're seeing up here is China's. So yes, China currently files more than, or publishes more than 10 times as many patents as they do in the US. And this is not just jurisdiction, so which jurisdictions are being filed in the most, but it actually looks at the origin of the company we're analyzing. So to put this into a general perspective, so this is what's happening internationally. We have lots of data from jurisdictions that are very inaccessible. And these type of patent information, like the US examiners are increasingly looking at Chinese filings to sort of gauge your patentability and novelty and things like that. So it's a huge challenge. In terms of data growing, so this is the application and grant trend globally across, and here we've organized it into families. So we're not kind of giving, there's no noise in the data of multiple applications for the same invention. we can essentially see each data point here as a standalone invention. And we have currently globally 4.5 million patent documents being published on an annual basis. And this is not stopping. We're getting to 6 here. We're predicting that it's going to be 6 million by 2023. That's a lot of data to sift through. And as an inventor, or even as a patent attorney, this job is becoming increasingly challenging, and it's extremely difficult to find what you're looking for in these type of data sets. So taking that kind of geographic, here we have, so this data is from all time, going back to, I think, like 1760, when we have the first German patents. But this is, so all patent applications and publications globally since the beginning of time. We can see that China has 26.26% of that patent pool. United States has 18.58%. But if we look at the last 5 years, the picture looks very different. So China, or companies originating in China, account for 68.44% of the global patent filings and publications, while the US is scraping by at a measly 9%. Okay. So yeah, what we're looking at here is PadSnaps Insights platform. So this can help you analyze any set of IP information, and it's really easy to kind of gather your data set as well. We use things like artificial intelligence and automatic searching to make this a little bit easier. But I wanted to kind of show you the scope of the issue with patent data. There's just no way of kind of searching this in traditional ways, and it's just too much data typically for subject matter expert to go for this. Any questions? So anyone found this sort of surprising, that China is basically 70% of the IP space in the last 5 years?
I mean, yeah, it is surprising. It's nice to see a very holistic or world view on it. So it's very insightful.
Yep.
Let me ask a question about that then. So yeah, I think it is surprising. I think probably a number of us were surprised to see that, but would you dive into explanations? Like, is this about an ease with which patents can be found in China compared to other countries? Is this about so many more innovators? Are there differences in how many concepts get put into one patent so that there are multiple patents? Like what are some of the explanations for that wide of a gap between all the other countries in China?
Yeah, so it's purely the rate of filing. And in terms of the quality of the claims that they managed to protect, well, China's been getting a bit better at kind of doing things by the book when it comes to approving things, and have cleaned up their patent system a lot. So yeah, so you can kind of make a reasonable assumption that the patents kind of cover something significant. China also has a different, they don't have that culture that they have in Japan, where they like to file like 10 patents for each aspect of an invention. Like the average patent value in Japan is like 250 US, which is, extremely low. China kind of, there's no such oddities there or anything like that. It's simply a very large population with that are very forward when it comes to industries that are typically patented, like mechanical sciences. Then we have design patents making up a large portion as well. So that's another consideration. But yeah, it simply is what it is. It's I think in China, it's not so much that it's like a couple of large companies representing most of this. It's fairly well spread. Can look at some of the largest filers in the world. So by the way, like me pushing 159 million patents into to our analytics platform is not what it was built for. I can tell you that much. So it might, sometimes I need to refresh this a couple of times, see what we get. Or let it wait for a little bit. It might be throttled by our server. I don't know, did that answer your question? Like the fact that it's just kind of normal filings. There's nothing, it's nothing that makes up for that besides like the greater industrial activity, etc.
There was
Sure.
another question too, Carl, about in your opinion, is there a funding process for innovators in China that isn't supported in the US?
So could you say that again?
Is there a funding process for innovators in China that isn't supported in the US?
A funding process? Like in terms of what type of funding?
This is Riley. I was just piggybacking on the question that had been asked before. And I was just wondering, you know, that's such a stark like contrast between the two countries. And is like, there are so many more patents going through. So is there a process in China that makes it easier for folks to apply, or is there, you know, government funding that helps them apply for these patents that we just don't have here?
Oh, that's a really great question. Yeah, there's a lot of state initiatives around this, and there's a lot of encouragement. For example, if you know about One Belt, One Road initiative in China. So because of the changing trade routes and how they're building out this kind of rail-based kind of trade area, there's been a lot of encouragement for Chinese companies to patent sort of all along the Great Road, so to speak. So like we see an uptick in Chinese companies patenting in Ukraine or Kazakhstan and things like that. In terms of general funding, I think fees are lower in general, but then Chinese companies are typically also less cash rich. So yeah, I think that's definitely something to look into. I know that a lot of focus has been around cleaning up the patent application sort of process and kind of improving standards between different regional patent offices in China, and making sure that the Chinese patent office, because previously sometimes there was existing innovations in the West, and then local Chinese companies have gone and kind of patented the same thing. And because Chinese examiners have not considered foreign data as much as they should have when judging kind of the novelty of the innovation. But that is being cleaned up. And I do think in general that there is more support. But yeah, I think still that's not the main reason. The main reason is simply because of industrial activity. Okay. So when you have all of this data to sift through, then you have a lot of challenges, such as, okay, first off, how do I read patents? Can I even read this many documents, even if I could find them all? And how can I search for them? Also, when so many of the relevant documents are in different languages as well, and across so many different patent databases. So how that is done in PatSnap, can just do that really quickly before I go in and look at all of the other different data points that we have. So if I take, for example, haptic device and alert. Let's say that's my innovation. So I'm just gonna borrow some text here. And let's say this is like my technical text or my invention disclosure or just technical notes on my innovation. All I need to do to search through all these 159 million patents is to copy in that relevant technical text. You can customize the input if you want to. So add certain keywords. For example, if the alarm aspect is really important, we can enter in a few extra keywords around that. But in general, it's just about pasting in the text and searching. So we're using text analysis to not only just count the keywords, but actually understand the intent of the sentences. Google uses our semantic search because it's been trained specifically on patent data. While they're much better than us than searching general data. When it comes to innovation data, we have trained our algorithms specifically on these data sets. So here we now find 320 documents in relation to my invention. Then, okay, I might still not have time to read through 300 documents. So what do I do as an innovator? Well, I need some help with reading these. So if I jump into this document, we're leveraging modern technologies to kind of make the reading and navigation of documents much easier. So here we have annotations of the patent figures. I can just click into one of these and immediately be taken to the part of the text that discusses a particular feature. Often an inventor might be interested in a specific aspect of a technology, like, let's say, the motor. Then we had the issue of sharing this knowledge and storing it. Well, we can do that here right in the text, make a comment, say, this is interesting. And we can tag the data as well to a certain technology type. Maybe we want to make a risk assessment, a project, etc. Okay, so we kind of solved this issue of reading patents, or at least made that a lot quicker. Then comes the issue of just understanding the space in general. So we can do that and process this data and make it a little bit easier to navigate and to understand and explore. So all I'm doing here is I'm pulling this semantically generated content into our analytics suite. And now we can start to understand the different trends, the key patents, the market valuations associated to these documents, where they're filed, in a technology lifecycle to understand here, for example, if a technology is kind of in a growth stage or decline or a period of recovery or just starting out. You can, instead of going through these 320 documents, you can use clever sort of segmentation and clustering algorithms to kind of navigate your space visually. So if I'm interested in the user interface, for example, the digital content aspect of that, well, then we have 2 patents relating to that specifically. Kind of tools like this to make it easier for someone who's not a database expert or a patent expert to explore and understand patents. So I want to understand if there's any new players in the space, then we can algorithmically detect that and see, okay, are there any existing large companies or new upstarts that recently gone into this space that I should be aware of? Well, it seems here we got a collection of the large ones like Facebook, but also an individual inventor and some smaller foreign businesses. Okay, so yeah, so this is how we address some of those kind of workflow challenges and help people kind of digest all of this data. Then going back to, this process, patents are only a small piece of the puzzle in terms of deciding whether or not I want to invest in a technology, right? We have all of these other data points we need to look at. So how do we do this? And how do we do that like at an early stage in an easy way? So we have something called Discovery that has brought together loads of different data sets. You can see an overview of the data sets here. So we're bringing together all company data, grants, VC, market reports, M&A, newspapers, patents, clinical trials, open innovation data. And we put it all under one roof and searchable through kind of one interface. So here, as an example, I've put together a query just based on simple keywords around alternative proteins, vegetarian meat substitution, imitation meat, etc. And all you have to do is just put in every possible keyword or variation thereof. And we also suggest keywords for you to use. For example, if I click on soy protein, they're suggesting some other keywords here. Imitation meat, let's see what we have. Perhaps nothing too valuable. And we can just use this tagging and this synonym system. And once that's done, and once we've created this query, then we can simply explore this data and then share that with our team or create reports, etc. So at its foundation, what Discovery does is that there is a challenge with all of these data sets, is that sometimes they're hard to search for. So because of different terminologies, etc. So what we've done is that we put a tagging engine on all of this data that kind of does text analysis and tries to figure out what something is about, and then puts relevant tags on it. So for example, if we're looking at textured vegetable protein, it comes with certain tags. Alternative protein also shows certain tags or relates certain topics to things. So if I go into, for example, scientific journals, these can be a little bit hard to search because of technical language and so on. So the tagging engine has gone through all of these documents and assigned them to certain topics. So for example, here we can see this one comes up because of soy protein, but then perhaps the words used in the article or the journal is plant protein, but you'll still find it. And you can use this intelligent AI tagging to even explore data. So like each thing has its own page, just like Wikipedia. And you can see all the data that has been tagged with the topic of soy protein. Yeah, so within one roof, we allow people to very easily search a very broad data set that's been curated to only include innovation data. See Beyond Meat here being the top company that we recommend. You can jump into Beyond Meat. You can understand everything about them. So for example, related companies, WordCloud of what they're doing, to doing patent-wise, portfolio-wise, to getting any funding, to getting a lot of funding. Total funding amount, 122 million disclosed, 10 rounds. If they've invested or acquired any other businesses as well, you can see as well. You can understand market reports, VC investments. So we can look at the individual data points, or we can graph it up. So if I'm launching a new product, I'd love to see this chart here, that VC investments are increasing. Obviously, it's a strong signal of market interest. We can store this and then compare this to any other rival projects or technologies that we're also planning on launching. And we can do the same thing with almost any data type. So by putting all this together under one roof and allowing people to kind of take away the difficulty with actually searching, removing the difficulties with foreign jurisdictions, and you see China with translations and so on, as well as all these other data points that we have to consider that are very difficult to search and sits in different sort of places. If we can, just make all of that accessible, easy to search, easy to explore, read, collaborate, then we believe that we have empowered the innovator, the subject matter expert themselves, to at a very, very early stage of their project, get a very broad and deep understanding of the technology space. I think that one of the best ways to kind of showcase that is that when you've done an AI-based search in PatSnap, you can visualize this as a landscape. Because it's kind of hard to make sense out of a list of 300 data points. So what we do is that we can translate that into a 3D topography where you can see where there is activity in a certain space, where different companies are active. So if we show all the patents here, for example, you can see where is Apple active, if there's any litigation or highly valued patents somewhere. And then we can position our own idea on this landscape to understand, okay, so what exactly are we going to come up against? And all you need from this, again, is just your technical text. And here, not too far away from where I borrowed this text from as an example. Let's see. Oh, zoom out a bit. Right around there. So maybe we want to do some detailed due diligence on the 25 patents that are coming in direct conflict. And maybe we should start in that bunch, in those 25 patents, to look closer at these two that are highly valued, or those three. And where is the closest litigation to your invention? So yeah, so that's kind of how we set out to solve this problem about empowering subject matter experts at an early stage to get good visibility on sort of the entire landscape around their innovation, from markets to patents and back. Hope this was interesting, and that you've seen something today that you've not seen before. Very happy to take questions or just feedback. Do you think this is something that's useful to you or to someone you work with? I'd love to hear it.
Folks are welcome to open their video and their mics if you have any questions for Carl or Lisa.
Hey, Carl, I came in late. I'm going to go back on Friday and watch the recorded version of this and see the first bit of it. So I apologize if you had already answered this. But how does one access this tool, and is there what kind of pricing is involved in pricing tiers, or what's the business side of getting into there?
Yeah. I think Lisa can talk a little bit about that. Our solution is not always cheap for small organizations and startups, but I know that we have some initiatives to help education and to help small startups to access our platform. And we also help smaller organizations with like research projects, but there are a number of tools on the market that can get you started and give you a feeling to see if looking at patent information is right for you. And that is, for example, patentlens.org, which is basically a free version of PatSnap, but with very different capabilities. So that's definitely a space I would recommend if I'm a small organization. I wouldn't get the full data set. I wouldn't get the sort of powerful AI or many of the analytics features and so forth. I can show you what that looks like.
And if you're interested and want to take an actual, deeper dive into it, more than happy to. I mean, Riley's going to send out my contact information. We can schedule a time to connect. We can take a look at, your organization and figure out, what makes sense for you. We wouldn't just kind of do a deep dive together, and then, you could trial the platform. It's no problem doing trial access as well to get your hands on with the tool. Ease of use is something we hear a lot for people who aren't working in and day out with patents. So just connect with, when Riley sends out the message, connect with me and we can do the side-by-side and actually go through some of your workflow as well and see if it makes sense for you to, discuss it further, and we can figure out, the pricing part, but don't want to put the cart before the horse. But we do have different levels of subscriptions options available.
Yeah, well, I think Carl was also probably taking me down the right path there in terms of this is not something that my company uses or that we use. We're not a big enterprise and we don't deal with patents very often, but there are some places where I'm helping advising different companies, and it would be kind of nice to do the ultra light version of this. And and I do see the robustness of the different tools that you guys have made in the user interface, but I'm pretty sure if your initial response was we're not very cost effective or not approachable for smaller companies that are only going to dabble in this, I'm afraid I probably already know the answer there. But I'll follow up. I wouldn't, I don't want to assume anything yet.
This is a great person to know, Adrienne. So I highly suggest connecting with her.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, we also do a lot of small startups sometimes pay us for professional services because we are, if you go to I don't know, Deloitte or KPMG, or you go to a patent attorney and you go to all these different sources, and then that might get a bit expensive, right? So it's a little bit cheaper going and asking these questions to a software company. Our rates are very competitive versus sort of external consultants and such. I think, Lisa, you can correct me, what is like a basic landscape report from PatSnap that we would use our tools to explore? How much is that nowadays?
So just around a couple $1,000s for that to be done. So it's significantly less than what you would expect for, paying an outside attorney or, like you said, some of these bigger firms. Yeah. And the beauty of most of our reports that we do for professional services, these are one-off projects that you're looking at, you do get access to PatSnap for 30 days with the report on the delivery of the report. So you can utilize the data that's in the report and work with it interactively and do some of the exercises that he just showed you around. Maybe there's a certain patent that's been identified within that report. You can take that abstract or the claims of that and run it through semantics and do a further analysis yourself. There's lots of different directions you can go depending on what you're trying to achieve. But being able to utilize PatSnap for 30 days with the report is really powerful.
Thanks.
Any other questions out there? Well, I'd like to thank Lisa and Carl for sharing their thought leadership with our community. I will be sending out a follow-up email to participants and non-participants alike with their contact information, so you can all connect with them via LinkedIn or via email. And I really appreciate all of those who took part in the event today. I know virtual events are kind of going by the wayside as folks are out in the summer sunshine. So we really appreciate you all taking the time to connect with us today. And again, I recommend that you check out TAO's event website, where you can check out other events that are going to be going on over the next few months, some of them actually in person with variety of COVID restrictions. So thanks again, everyone. I hope you enjoy the sunshine this afternoon and have a great day.
Thanks, Riley. Thank you, everybody.